This hour, we're bringing you a look at newly released documents in the Idaho student murders case. Now, these documents there's a lot of pages, but they're shedding light into what really happened to Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. Hundreds of documents were released by the Moscow police within hours of Kohberger being sentenced to life in prison. Now, in the next part of this, we want to focus on the autopsies of two of the victims. Let's start first with Kaylee Goncalves, who had 20+ stab wounds. And the document states that she had sharp force injuries, asphyxial injuries, blunt force injuries, and that her fatal injuries included lacerations in her left lung and liver, subdural bleeds, a stab behind her clavicle that cut her subclavian vein and artery. Phil, very hard to hear, but the reality is that is not one stab wound to the heart. That is not a quick get in, get out. That is purposeful, and she's moving, and Bryan Kohberger's going after her, and repeated stab wounds. The number of injuries surprises me a little bit when you hear all four were killed by one person in their home, 4 a.m. It happened, so many stab wounds, so many injuries.
It is shocking,
you're right.
Ashley. And the asphyxial injuries do make it appear that he was holding her down by her neck while he proceeded to just brutally stab her repeatedly. Just the number of the wounds and how deep and how brutal they are, it's not something you see. I mean, I have seen stabbing cases, but the reports in this case indicate a level of intentionality and force and a methodical approach that you really don't see very much.
Ugh, Ted, it's horrific hearing these details.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And to your point, it's so many stab wounds. The rage that he had to have had, or something, whatever was fueling him. He doesn't know these people. It's not the ex-boyfriend, it's not the husband or the wife killing the husband, like a lot of the cases. These are four strangers, and he mutilates them. It is horrific. And look at Madison Mogen, her autopsy report. Fatal injuries, lacerations to the left lung and liver. Maddie only had sharp force injuries. The weapon was very sharp. Suspect used a lot of force. Joanna, you said earlier it's hard. You're not going to be able to put yourself in the position of the person that, if you want to call him a person, that did this. But just from a logistical standpoint, to pull this off, you have to be physically and mentally in a state of where adrenaline's running through your body, and there's got to be a factor of rage or something, because it's just he mutilated four individuals in a very short amount of time. It's horrible.
Yeah, it is terrible. Reading this is just as it shines this light and makes it very, very clear that there had to be something more to it. I think that's just what people want to believe, because it's like, how not only are you carrying this out and against four people, but stabbing tends to be so personal. Like you were saying, you see this in these dating relationships, or where there's something that happened, and then you have the asphyxiation as well. Like a strangulation is some kind of like more personal type of crime that we typically see. And so those combination, when you see that for Kaylee, but you don't necessarily see the same report for Madison, it almost makes you wonder, was there something that triggered this between him and Kaylee that trickled over into the rest of the home, but was his intention really targeted towards her? Again, we don't know, but those little nuggets or clues that are left behind make you wonder that yes, they were strangers. They didn't personally know him, but was there some off the cuff remark or something that happened in a parking lot or some chance encounter at some point that really made them the target of his fixation?
And you know, it's interesting. I think the word targeting can be misused or misunderstood, because I know the police in Moscow said no, they were not targeted. But when we're looking through this transcript and see things like one of the roommates reporting she may have seen someone outside of the home, one of the doors hanging by its hinges, the screen doors at the home, you do have to wonder, to your point, if perhaps he didn't know them, but he had his sights fixed on them. Call that what you may. I want to turn, though, to another part of the documents, because we also see some of the results from Xana Kernodle's autopsy. I can't get over this. It states that she had 50+ stab wounds. Most of hers were defensive wounds. Her fatal injuries included lacerations in her right lung and heart, with only sharp force injuries. To make it even harder, to make it even sadder, Phil, defensive wounds, 50. She fought for her life, literally, and the autopsy proves that.
It does, and I think if you look at the differences that you see in the autopsy reports for these individuals, I believe it was it Morgan's that it was only fatal, it was only sharp force. Kaylee, you have the asphyxiation, and then with Xana, you do have the defensive wounds. So it suggests, it certainly would be consistent with an unfolding of events where Morgan is kept caught completely off guard. Kaylee becomes aware of what's happening maybe right before it does, and he has to hold her down. And by the time he comes to Xana, she is aware of what's happening in the house and trying to do something or defend herself. So just a horrific picture of events, and I think that is borne out in the police reports and the observations of the first responders when they arrive.
Yeah, and we do know that Xana had received a DoorDash delivery in the minutes before, within 15-20 minutes before the murders. And according to her phone activity, she was on watching TikTok videos, so she was awake. So she must have heard something up from the third floor and then engaged with the suspect, but 50+ wounds is horrific. Now, Ethan, this is the autopsy findings for Ethan Chapin. Fatal injury was from a stab wound under his left clavicle. The wound severed his jugular vein, subclavian artery. He only had sharp injuries as well. Was he asleep? Was he... You have to think that if Xana fought back, that maybe he was just waking up, or if he was killed first. We don't know. We don't know, but what we do know is that these 4 beautiful people were absolutely just butchered in a way that is savage. And again, it comes back to how would you fuel that and we don't know, but you're right, Joanna, there seems to have to be something, unless he's Mr. Warrior going to fight in his it's hard to get your head around. And if you think about the family members who, now that these documents have been released, have an opportunity, if they want, they can really go into some horrible rabbit holes in terms of details of how they lost their loved ones.
Ted, can I just jump in here and say, I just think there was an adrenaline of committing the perfect crime. I think in his mind, he was going to commit that perfect crime. He knew exactly what he was going there to do. And I think his adrenaline was so full tilt to do this successfully that just fueled him on. Joanna, I know Ted had asked you. I just had to say that, but Joanna, weigh in, please.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, I think the family, it would be hard for these people who've been so invested and who have these unanswered questions and, you know, to avoid looking at these documents and trying to figure out something to give them, bring them some level of peace and closure about what happened. And, you know, him not saying anything, obviously he has his rights to keep it to himself, but him not saying anything is just another level of torture towards the family and the survivors. And then as far as, you know, him carrying out that perfect crime, obviously he failed. You know, he left a sheath behind with DNA evidence on it. And, you know, he prides himself on being so smart, and this narcissistic demeanor that we've kind of caught on to, that we've mentioned, may lead to him somewhere down the line doing a book or doing some television expose on why he did it and how he did it. I do believe he'd love to take the stage with that. But at the end of it all, will this give the family any peace? You know, I think that's what we're looking for. Whether it's from him sharing something or these documents, they may want to avoid the gritty details, but I don't think they'll be able to resist. They're going to be looking for some closure.
Right, you want to know everything. You want to know everything, what happened to your little girl or boy at this point, because let's face it, they were young adults, yes, but to their parents, they were their little ones that they watched grow up.